pushing away from the Warren terminal. Trevor stares at the ceiling, bitter sorrowful tears filling the brim of his eyes. A quivering hand with a cigarette wrapped between his index and middle fingers makes another journey to his arid lips. Gale force winds crash into the beacon house with a ferocity he has never seen before. Lightning illuminated the skies for split seconds before being swallowed by the oppressive darkness, followed by a deep rolling thunder. The storm was not the reason for the pit of hopelessness inside of his belly. Like blood being drained from a butchered animal turned upside down, he can feel all hope leave his soon-to-be cadaver. Mayday, mayday, mayday! This is emergency traffic from the last beacon tower of the planet Aqua 6 of the Ashima system. An organism that was thought to be long extinct has arisen from the oceans, causing a cataclysmic level event of all colonies. Recording paused. Recording stopped. The computer confirmed. The first and last words that came from the first settlement to fall to the claw and tooth of the monsters were, "The waves have eyes." The waves did indeed have eyes, he thought. Terrified to look at the angry ocean. Terrified to see the horned, bulbous heads that bobbed in the churning waters. Heavy tears carved ragged streams down his face as the weight of all the sorrow settles on his narrow shoulders. Why are they just waiting there? Trevor quickly used his sleeve to wipe the tears from his face, not wanting to turn to look at him. Hands still trembling as he tried to gain control over the cigarette that was now dangling from his mouth. "I thought I made it clear. I needed to be alone. I heard, but I know better." Marvin placed a hand on his shoulder and squeezed. "No one needs to be alone, not in times like this." Changing the subject, Marvin asked, "Why haven't they tried the shields, or attack? They seem to be just waiting. They stay in the water during storms," Trevor answered, his jaw tight with tension. "So, the storm is the only thing that's keeping us alive now." Trevor took another slow drag, filling his lungs with the herbal smoke for a couple of seconds, then slowly exhaled, releasing the smoke through his flared nostrils. An understanding of why people of ancient Earth wanted that last cigarette before facing the firing squad. They are waiting for the others. They like to attack in huge numbers. Every time I look out that fucking window, a shiver ran down his spine as he peered into the gloom. It seems like 100 more pairs of eyes are staring back at me. Marvin joined him at the observation window. The rain came down in angry sheets. Titanic waves slammed into the coastal shields, causing an eerie green hue in the night. Both men stood silent as the howl of the wind continued. Was it the wind, or the chorus of the creatures? Trevor thought, looking down at his watch. For the first time, Trevor looked at Marvin. He noticed his eyes were red with grief and fear. Trevor imagined that reflection of the man standing in front of him. Trevor pulled him close and for a moment, they just held each other. "Let me finish the call," reluctantly pulling away from his partner's grip. "What's the point? When the storm breaks in the next couple of hours." Sobs swallowed the rest of his words. Pulling him close, kissing him on the forehead, Trevor cupped his face with his hands, catching his tears. "Don't say it, please don't say that. Don't give up hope." Tears flowing again down his narrow face, gaunt with exhaustion. "We have been sending the same message for the last 6 months. Since." "I know." His anger and frustration spilling over. Marvin recoiled from the flash eruption of emotion. Trevor brought both his hands to his head, pulling at his thinning hair, taking a deep breath, trying to calm down. "Don't you think I know this?" Trying to pull his anger back in. "It's the only chance we have. If we stop broadcasting, anyone out there will give up and consider us a dead world." Looking back at his watch, fighting to keep his tears at bay. "We are just so far from any other Federation world. The closest outpost is a 6-month voyage. We know. Our only chance is to get these messages out. In the hopes it reaches a passing convoy, or better yet a drop team. Start recording." All planet-side survivors are now in the coastal city of Solas. The creatures have overwhelmed all space ports. Trevor paused, hands on his hips, looking down in the floor. He had to take a second to compose himself while taking a glance at Melvin, who was sitting down at the table with his hands clasped together between his knees. There are only 6,500 of us left. We are requesting assistance and evacuation. The seasonal storm off the coast is the only thing that is keeping them at bay. We are gearing up for our last stand. Making a session of keystrokes, an image of the creature appeared on the screen. I am sending all updated information we have on the creatures, in the hopes this will help you better prepare. Please don't give up on us. Send message. Message sent, the computer confirmed. Trevor kneeled next to Marvin, wiping the tears from his tired face. Go try to get some sleep. I will keep watch. I won't be able to sleep. I want to keep you company. A frail smile struggled to make it across his face, moving his hand to Marvin's thigh, giving him a squeeze. Marvin unfolded his hands and cupped Trevor's face, smiling back at him. There was nothing else to be said between the two. Exhaustion took the two men within minutes, as the storm continued to rage. Wake up! Terror had a firm grip on Marvin's arm as he glared out the window. The storm is breaking up. They are testing the coastal shields. Damn it! Trevor was instantly awake and bounded towards Marvin. How long were we out? Just 4 hours. The sun is coming up. I've made the call to command and made them aware. The morning was gloomy with a thick fog that swirled around the beachhead, making it impossible to see the creatures. Are the shields holding up? No major hits yet. Seems like they are probing us though, 100%. So far no breaches. Roger that. Why aren't we bombarding them? We decided to wait, in hopes that the shields vaporize as many of them as can before it fails. We are going to save our firepower until then. This is it, isn't it, Trevor? I don't want to be ripped apart by those things. Panic finally took him. I don't want to get eaten alive, grasping at Trevor's shirt, eyes wide with a primal fear. We won't. Trevor calmly produced the gun from his holster. I promise you, I won't allow that to happen to us. We will go out together. On our terms. We will fight till our last shell. Trevor paused, steeling himself. We all agreed that once the time comes, we would rather atomize ourselves as a people than to be used as the main course of these bastards. Pointing out a window. Thunder shook the beacon house again, then again and again. Trevor stood up. That doesn't sound like thunder. He thought, the storm has clearly passed. Looking down at Marvin, who must have had the same thought swirling through his head, Trevor figured. Marvin also stood up. Both made their way to the window as purple-blue blossoms speckled over the dense fog. That's not thunder. For the first time in months, he sounded hopeful. Those sounds like subatmospheric re-emergence booms. Incoming message? Accept transmission. Connection established. This is Asakari, from the 13th Company. We have heard your call. We will assist with the evacuation and protection of your 65,000 souls. The 13th. Standing impatiently by one of the most precious pieces of equipment on her ship, her thoughts were unreadable. The machine teased her, Kizzy thought. It rarely takes this long. Another thought crossed his mind, wondering if one guy had been messing with the inner workings of the machine. Playing a prank, of course. It must have been Angelo and his bunch, he thought as he waited. The machine finally let out a flat beep, signaling the end of its crucial purpose. A stream of steaming dark brown fluid filled her purple mug. A strong smell of cinnamon, mint, and a trace of citrus filled the war room. Kizzy waited patiently for her to finish her brew routine. She didn't have too many quirks. This was one of them. The war room was a place the crew met to create action plans, debrief, and sometimes simply just hang out, pass the time. Sweeping up the cup as if it was the most precious thing in the cosmos. You were saying, Kizzy, she turned on her heel, quickly turning to him, making an imaginary toast to him. Please carry on, you have my undivided attention now, looking down at the brew then back up at him, shrugging her shoulders. I believe we were discussing the concerns of the new intel we have just received. Oh, does that worry you, Kizzy? I wouldn't be too worried about it, taking a loud sip. It's my job to worry, ma'am. These Garmanians will be a problem. We don't have anyone who has never faced them before. Hell, until a couple of hours ago I thought they were a myth. An uncomfortable chuckle escaped him. To scale, please. The computer, reading his tone, followed his command. The room darkened, while the hello table produced a hologram of a Garmanian on cue. Most beings are biologically predictable, but these things, she corrected. Of course, this being, correcting himself, is just a different story, not missing a beat from the interruption. A standard Garmanian stands around 6 meters, weighing in at around 4 tons. He walked around the massive being, taking in its unbelievable details. Amused by his worry, she leaned back against the wall, crossing her arms, before taking another long drag of her brew. Her dark eyes, like black pearls suspended within her clear milky white sclera, are watching him closely. It's not their size that makes them unique, or causes me to lose sleep at night. Show action sequence number 1. The image flicked from a still hologram to a vid that shows 3 heavily armed Garmanians attacking what looked like a heavily armed military complex. It was like watching 3 small hills converge on a complex. One of the Garmanians laid down suppressive fire as the other 2 attacked. The complex rushed in. The effect was impressive. Buildings fell, walls blew apart like a child kicking down a stack of blocks. As you can see, these 2 don't even bother to use any projectile weapons, rubbing his temples with his eyes closed, trying to fight off the tension that was building from within. No, they have the nerve to use a fucking type of axe and what looks like a club. He turned to look at Esakari. Her demeanor hasn't changed at all. She was still in the same position, casually leaning on the wall and looking at him. Those eyes always seemed to look deep into his DNA. It unnerved him. Not every time, mind you, but times like this. Those eyes watched him like what he imagined a god would look at its creation, making sure everything was working right with it. Kizzy had secretly come to grips long ago that she wasn't human, even though all the tests show she was. Of course, we have weapons to put down most beings, of course. The issues with the Garmanians are their ability to control their body's mass and density, pushing his earlier thoughts aside, working to stay on task. I foresee the major challenge will be to determine which weapon will give the desired effect. I don't think we have anyone on the roster, even with power armor, that will go toe-to-toe with just one of these. Let alone 10. Taping her cup softly, Kizzy could tell this had caught her attention. 10 Garmanians, huh? So, you're saying we shouldn't accept the assignment? Kizzy blinked at the response, not sure how to take the question. That's not my choice to make, Commander. I understand that, Kizzy. If you were in command, would you have taken this assignment? No longer leaning on the wall, casually making her way towards the brewmaker, a slight hand gesture gave the computer a command to mute the sound of the vid. The onslaught of the facility by 3 Garmanians continued in an eerie silence. Kizzy paused to examine the question carefully. Knowing she wasn't trying to make him look bad, that wasn't her way of doing things. He had the feeling that he was being pushed towards something. A direction or purpose which only she knew. A test, he thought, but why? It wasn't making any sense to him. His thoughts raced, trying to put it all together, as she made it to her machine, humming a tune he was unfamiliar with. Something deep down, something instinctive, warned he needed to produce an answer before she finished filling her cup. Her tone had been plain and non-confrontational. So why am I taking it as a confrontation, and what would happen if he didn't answer the question until after she picked up the cup and turned towards him? Priority message, Commander, the computer voice echoed through the chamber. She gave another hand gesture, barely perceivable. Silence again filled the room. The fluid again fell out of the machine, filling his cup. Kizzy felt like it was a reverse hourglass. Instead of an event happening with the loss of sand, he felt that when her cup was full, something would indeed happen. Yes, Commander, I would have taken the assignment. Even now, knowing about the Garmayinians? Yes, Commander. Please spare me with all the commander shit, Kizzy. It's just you and me in here, waving her hand like clearing a smoke-filled room, dismissing the formality of the title. Dismissing the formality of the title. Dismissing the formality.